what's up, guys? It's Himini. We got Sirghoul15 here.
Yep.
And he just hit his 2K milestone. So everybody give him a round of applause for that. And there you go.
We need like the background like applause and like confetti.
Yeah, I'll try to put that in there. All right, man. So a lot of people they don't know who you are. Some people do. So give us a quick summary, who you are, when you started, and why you started.
So, basic rundown. I started in, I started trading in looks like 2019 area. Um, I was studying since around 2017, I think late 2017, and started trading in 19. And basically, I've been working since, just like everyone since 15 or so, and got kind of annoying, honestly. So I went through a few different like fields and just I was trying to find something that not only could pay the bills, but maybe do a little bit more. Not like I'm in this to make, tens of millions or anything like that, but
Mhm.
that's all I was looking for, just something a little bit more than a 9 to 5 and something that you can do on your own time or like with trading that I found out from anywhere, which is cool. I mean, you just got to lug your 6 monitors, but it's
Yeah,
okay. No,
yeah,
but
especially me. I'm dragging around 3 monitors every conference.
right, right. But hey, when the conference is filmed, we all know where you're at, so it's good.
Yeah, right. It's like
But
every picture of the conference when you see my monitors, you're like, oh, that's where he is.
seriously, when what was it when he's like, hold up your screens,
Yeah,
you're
I was
trying to
trying to
jump
pick up
on.
every monitor.
But yeah, that's basically it. When I moved, uh, let me see, I'm gonna try and cut it short. But basically, when I moved to where I'm at now, or the area that I'm at now in Southwest Florida, I was working for my dad, and I was trying to figure out something that I could do on the side to make money in addition to working, and then
Mhm.
just do both. And I stumbled into Ricky Gutierrez on YouTube. I think is his name, Ricky,
Yeah,
Ricky. And I was watching his videos and I was like, this guy, I was like, and he's talking about like buying properties and he obviously from trading, but and then buying cars and stuff. I'm like, dude, this is what I want to do right here.
yeah,
I looked into that, but at first I was looking into like real estate, but you need money, to
yeah.
start that type of shit. So
Mhm.
but then I found that, so that intrigued me right off the bat. But then life happens, and I had to put all that in the back burner. And then I ended up I had to get a different job because I couldn't work for my dad anymore. And then it just I was at that job for a few years, and sorry, my dog's back there. And let's see, I worked there for a couple years, and then I, I was just getting so burnt out. It was outside like a labor job, nothing wrong with it, but it was just I wanted to do a little bit more. And then I remembered Ricky Gutierrez from a couple years ago, like two years ago then. Um, and I decided to look back into it. And when I did look into it, the guy I was working with, he was also interested in trading. So Dan Rose, if he watches this, he'll know. He was the foreman I was working with, and we both got into I can't remember who found him or what, but we found Tim Sykes and I ended up signing. Are you serious? Goofball. Um, but we found Tim Sykes and I ended up signing up for his silver program. Like I said, I think it was like 2017. And sorry, it's their playtime now, apparently. But yeah, we signed up 2017 for the silver thing, or I did. I don't know if he did or not. I think he was just like Tim Alerts. I think it was what it was. And then just from there, I just studied at work. I would wear like headphones and like listen while I was digging holes or whatever to
Yeah.
video lessons and shit like that. And then whenever we drove, because we worked all over the state, um, I would I'd be watching videos while he was driving, and we'd be discussing like trading and stuff like that. But and then fast forward. Well, I tried trading from work or at work, and it was just who I can't remember who said it, but I feel like it was Roland where he said that like the instant that he opened an account, he wanted to trade, and
Yeah.
that's exactly how I was. Like there was no like like shyness at all. Like I opened an account and I just started trying to trade. But yeah, and then that's how I lost a little bit at the beginning because I was just trading whatever. But
Yeah.
you know, it is what it is, not a big deal. But work continued, and then I ended up moving, getting promoted, moving into the office and stuff like that, and then trading hit the back burner again because I had to learn a new position, and
Yeah.
I couldn't do exactly what I was doing out in the field, out in an office. So, and then yeah, I think that's where the gap in my profit chart from 20 to 21 was because I just wasn't trading too much.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at my profit chart now. Then January of 21, or I think it was December of 20, I think it was January. I ended up like trading 1 month in the office. Like I brought in my computer. It reminds me of Tim Lento too, because like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
literally like I was a project manager, so I literally like walked in early before everyone was there, and I snuck in my own computer monitor. So like I had my laptop and I'd be studying like off to the side. Or I think at that point I was watching like a Seth Feroce podcast, and then I told my wife, I said I want to get back into trading because I think that this could be the thing that gets me out of it.
Mhm.
Um, so I started studying again, and I had my laptop, but then I snuck in an extra screen, and I said, I wonder if they're going to be upset that I have two personal screens and only one work screen. But I had it up for like 2 weeks, and then one of the guys walked over, and he's like, "What is that?" And I'm like, "Oh, I've always had this. Like, this isn't new." But they let me go with it for a little bit, and then I kept testing the waters. I'd place trades at work, and like
Mhm.
I would do like what they suggest, where when it's volatile in the morning, I would have my watch list, and I would try to trade in the morning, from maybe like 9:30 to 10:30 ish. If I didn't have any meetings or whatever. But they soon got sick of that. Even though I was still doing all my work, but they just obviously didn't like it, which is fair.
Yeah.
So I had to take my screen out, so I couldn't trade anymore. But that kind of made me bitter because they said they were cool about it, but they weren't. But it's okay. But so I think that's where that other gap was between January of 21 and 22. So I just really couldn't trade. And it's hilarious because the two gaps were basically like were the hottest times in the market that we've
Oh
seen.
yeah, man. That was my
So,
gap as well.
dude, it's so ironic when that happened because I looked back and from 2020, and I was like, oh my God, like I didn't even look, and I probably could have made some good money. And then
Yeah.
January, it was January, or December, but it rolls around, and then I made in my profit chart, I ended up making like I think I made like $800 in the month. And I
Mhm.
went up to my supervisor, Justin, and he loved that I traded, and he's always got my back. I still talk to him now, but he I told him how much I made, and he's like, "Oh, dude, this is something for you. Like, you got to get into this." And
Yeah.
then, of course, I lost a little bit I think like the next month or something like that, because that's when it kind of started fading off. But
Mhm.
that was where I was like, "Oh, there's some potential here." If I think it was maybe $500 or $600, but that was like way more than I've ever made. So, in a faster span than I've ever made it.
Yeah.
So I can't remember how my position size was. I'm sure it was like atrocious. I'm sure my risk it was atrocious.
Yeah.
I'm sure like I don't know. I'm sure it was like I had bad like what is it like basics down,
Yeah.
but during that time you could do whatever and make money basically. But
Yeah, absolutely.
so but yeah, and then I took that break, missed that missed 21,
Yeah.
and then started up again. Basically, I got fired from that job. Long story short, for there, um, and my wife and I, for all these years, were talking about trading being that thing that I pursue. So, we got for all those years, we were focused on just getting debt under control.
Mhm.
Sorry, they're just going nuts back there. But so we got debt under control. We paid off what we could, and then once I got fired, we already had that in mind that this was potentially this was potentially the time for me to just do it, because if
Yeah.
I don't jump away, then I might not ever. So
Mhm.
finally stepped away, and I've been trading full time ever since. That's the long-winded version, I guess.
Yeah,
But
that's great, man. That's awesome.
and that was October, I think late October of 21 is when I started. Um, and I lost a couple $100 up until January of 22. What was it? I was at like 600 or something, and I went down to 3. And then I, because obviously that was the top of the market.
Yeah.
But so
Bro, it says the Zoom call will end in 10 minutes.
well, look at that.
So
I just
we'll
put my
do
time
two
limits on.
together. We'll do two
Huh?
together anyway.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's basically it. And then January hit, and I basically, I think I was trying to trade listed way too much,
Mhm.
and I was really mentally struggling because I lost half of my earnings, which wasn't huge, but half of what I earned on my profit chart. And then I think, oh, we had taxes come out, so I had to. I didn't have to. My wife didn't want me to, but I had like $4,500 or something, and then we took out half of that to pay our taxes for that year. So then my account. So not only was I down on the year at the beginning, but I had to cut my account size in half. So I was pretty depressed for maybe the first half of the year, really trying to just grind back up and get my account to what it was. Um, but yeah, that's basically it. And now, let's see, what was it? November we went to the conference of
Yeah,
last year,
that was
22
um it was actually October.
October. Okay,
Yeah, October 17 and 18, yeah. Um
yeah, I
and
got it.
that's and that's basically where you started taking off more, you know.
Yeah,
That's pretty sick. So
yeah.
how did you reach your 2K milestone, and what do you think contributed to it?
So before October 22, the conference, I had 1 month last year. I'm looking at my charts here, or my monthly P&Ls. I had a few months where I was up, a few months where I was down, but I think I was overall up just slightly on the year. And 1 month I hit one trade that I made like $250 on it, or $260. So that was like huge. But that was one of those trades where the percentage gain was very high, like the potential. So I
Yeah.
figured that I consider that more of a lucky trade, even though I did well on it. Um, but I think one of the biggest things was the conference. Honestly, I know like everyone who everyone says this type of thing, and you're like, oh yeah, okay, sure thing, I got to pay for a conference or whatever. But
Yeah.
that was like huge. I mean, obviously we met there,
Yeah.
uh, and we hit it off. Um, but I seriously, I'm trying to think of what else there was, but really I think it was the conference because
Hmm.
it took people out of the realm of where they just exist. And then when you meet them, obviously it's like, oh my God, it's obvious that these are actual people and that this
Yeah.
is actually happening. But when you're in the room with them and they're talking to you, or, like Roland, just a super nice guy, all of them,
Yeah.
Roland, Kellogg, Monaco, I'm trying to think of Tui. They're all just awesome guys.
Yeah.
And it puts into perspective that we're all similar,
Mhm.
and I'm not trying to shit on anyone, but no one's like
Uh,
super special,
yeah.
unless, except maybe Kellogg, because I guess he's like
Yeah.
a different animal, but uh, no one's like a rocket scientist, and plus these are all
Mhm.
young guys.
Yeah.
I'm 28 now. I'm going to be 29 this year. And like you hear on all the videos, like Tim says, what made you want to do this? And it's like, oh, I see all these young guys doing it, so why can't I do it? You
Yeah.
know, that's just what I guess it just like hit me at the conference, and definitely talking with you too,
Yeah.
because you like the short side
Yeah.
and I only long. So getting a different perspective is really helpful. But I have to say it was the conference, man. I have to say it's a conference. I don't know. That's all I can
Yeah.
say about it.
And I learned a ton from you too there, like how you get the dip buys and you nail the bottom. So when I'm short, I'm like, where's Alan gonna dip buy this so I could get out?
Right.
That's what I learned a lot from you on that part. And also in the sense that I could start trying to do longs more and see, like see what you're seeing, see your perspective and try the longs in that sense as well. But what's funny is everybody's different. Like the conference, I went to the one in September and October, and if you look at my profit chart, that was the start of my 3 month losing streak going to the
Right.
conferences.
Right.
So like people, yeah, they're hearing this, they're gonna say, oh, he went to the conference and started making money, but it's not always true that way, you know.
Right.
What I like to think about is if I didn't go to that conference, maybe I'd still be on a losing streak, that those conferences allowed me to keep working through the hardships and keep pushing when nothing was working for me. And just like it gives you that inspiration. Like all these guys made it through those hard times. So as long as you stick with it and don't lose all your money, then you're ready for when shit starts working for you, you know?
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing. Not, you know, they all say don't blow up because if you blow
Mhm.
up, you can't play anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it like you another thing, like you said, just because you went to a conference, it doesn't mean you're going to magically just start making money. And I
Yeah,
mentioned it in a
exactly.
chat yeah, I mentioned in a chat that we're in yesterday. Like I'm
Uh,
sure there's going to be a time coming up, probably soon, where I'm going to be down and out, and I'm going to be sitting here saying, I don't know if I can keep doing this. Like maybe this isn't for me, because every time you do well, and I haven't even been doing it long. You've been doing it longer than me, and every time you do well, it's Icarus flying too close to the sun, and then
yeah.
you do make a stupid decision. I mean, we talked about December of last year. I
Yeah.
was in the year on a high note, and you know, dip buys are good when you don't add.
Exactly. And then you added the
Yeah,
sell up.
I added what was it? I dip bought. I'm not gonna look it up. I could look it up later, but I dip bought, and I normally would cut 100%, like or 98% of the time I cut. And I wanted a bigger month to finish the year off because I was like, oh, I'm gonna tag everyone and be like, look at my fucking year, kicking ass. I didn't cut and I added, and I'm like, well, how many times do you dip buy and then you cut and then you rebuy and it's the bounce? So I was like,
Yeah.
oh, this will be perfect because I'll be a little bit bigger size, and then it'll bounce and I'll get out and have a bigger win.
Yeah.
Everyone thinks that, and then it kept going, and I'm like, oh no, it's one of these.
Was
So
that the one where you were like taking the day off so you don't force anything after the morning? And I hit you up and I'm like, yo, this one had a panic.
oh shit, you know
Was that
what?
the one?
I don't know.
I
Oh
think it was
shit.
that one because
Let me
I
look
felt
that
bad
shit up.
about it.
Wait, whoa, whoa, whoa. Let me look this up because that very well might be. That
Yeah,
might
I felt
be.
bad about it. I'm like, oh man, this guy just got undisciplined because of me. Because you did add to that one too. That might have been before the one that beat you up, but I remember I brought you into the market as you were trying to run away just to just to get you trapped on a panic.
Let me see. Who was that one?
I just stopped
I
that
think. Oh, it
escalating.
was. No, it wasn't. It wasn't that day, but I think it was. I think it was CGRA.
Oh, okay.
When you,
Yeah.
I think, what was it like 3 o'clock, 3:20 or something? Is that about it? You think?
Yeah, yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I ended up losing 26%
Oh man.
on part of that, and then I lost 6% on another. And this funny thing about that one, I remember that. Um, I can't remember the entries, but I do remember I another bad habit I added, but I added way more to a lower, obviously to a lower entry or a lower
Mhm.
average. And my 25% loss was big, but it was such a small position. I mean, it was 44 bucks, which is huge to me now because I don't like dealing. I mean, you know, I risk like $5 now, but
Yeah.
um, I had 3K shares. The next entry, I had 15,000 shares. So I had way bigger size. It was like 700 bucks as opposed to a $170 position. And I was up like 15% at close. And I literally could have sold it and made like $3 overall. And I said, you know what? It bounced a little bit. It's going to gap up tomorrow morning and I'll sell into the gap up.
Yeah.
Oh, I held it and I was comfortable with it. And I
Yeah.
waited until the next morning. What does it do? It fucking gaps down and I'm down 20% on this one. And I'm like, oh my God, I was down 150 bucks, I think, at open.
Jeez.
I was devastated. So instead of taking you know, a flat loss and not being greedy, I could have I held it. And then it ended up thankfully bouncing at open and it ripped up and I sold immediately into the strength and I took a 6% loss. But so I ended up taking an $80, I think $85 loss overall on that when really I could have gotten out break even. But that really hurt my month, that trade. And
Yeah.
then later on in the month, I was doing well and I made that back up. And then the next week I did the same thing where I added and you know, that's just bad. I just can't do that anymore. But I see we're
Yeah.
on in a minute, so I don't want to
But
get
see,
into
yeah, it's great you learned what you did wrong and you did everything you can to fix it. And now you're on your track, you're on the right track again and things are working well. So keep it up. Yeah, let's end this one and then start another one real quick. All right. Yeah, and what's crazy is like you get those winning streaks, they get you confident with the right setups, and then it's so easy to mess it all up in one shot. Like
Yep.
whether it's the setup not working anymore and you're being a little too stubborn with it, that was my case, or even like you think you're getting in on the right setup, but your judgment is skewed because you had like a nice month straight of wins basically.
Right.
There's a few ways to experience those drawdowns. And yeah, during those 3 months where I was just I was pretty much winning like 50% of the time or probably even less. Um and the ones that I thought were good setups, I tried to size up on and they just turned into disasters basically. And I got a little too stubborn, so I kept trying the same setup like 4 or 5 more times.
Right.
That just took all my confidence away. That was the beginning of the losing streak. And then for the next 3 months, I felt like I couldn't even trade. Um,
Right.
but like that's how it goes. And you just got to keep working because then you get through it and you
Right.
do better on the upside the next time around.
Right.
Yeah.
Af- after that one, when you recommended that trade and then I took it. No, I'm just kidding. No, after I got stubborn on that trade, I was like devastated because my month was looking pretty good for me. And then the next week I had 3 green days in a row and I was like, oh, I'm back, baby. Like, let's go. This month is gonna be great. And then that's where I had those big losses. Let's see, it was the 15th and 16th.
Yeah.
At oh wait, here, I lost your video here. Give me 1 second. But it was the 15th and 16th of last year, and that's where I added. I can
Mhm.
give like percentages, but I mean, again, just got like arrogant. Um, oh, it was only on the 15th I did entries, and it was HNRC, and that bitch did not bounce at all. And I added, let's see, I added 1, 2, 3 times I added to it. So just not smart. And I ended up taking a 16% loss, 11%, and then 12%. Um, and that was another one where I had a piece and I decided to swing it overnight and then it gapped down. And I was
Wow.
like, man, I just can't catch a break. And then I think that morning, I can't remember, but I feel like I might have cut it and then maybe it bounced then, and I was kind of pissed, but I can't remember for sure. But yeah, that was, I mean, $130 or something like that I lost on
Yeah.
those 2 days, or it was 108 $190
Wow.
between those 2 days. So I had a good green week going, and then I
Hmm.
ended the week down $110, and I just had to step away. Monday of that next week, I didn't even trade. I just took a 3-day weekend, um and then I came back Tuesday and said I'm not adding again. No more ads to dip buys. That's not happening. And what I do Wednesday, I dip bought and then I add. I add it again. So like I say it just to be like honest, like I
Yeah.
just even Tuesday I said I'm not doing it. Monday I said I'm not doing it. Tuesday, no. Earlier in the month with that trade with you, I added, no, not doing it. Got screwed, did it, no more. And then I did it again. So third time's the charm, but I haven't, knock on wood, I haven't added again.
That's
Um,
good.
so, we'll see. And this year I'm just focused on, you mentioned before, when you try to size up on stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm just not even sizing up. Like
Yeah.
I'm not adding, I'm not playing with size. I'm not, which is what's really interesting to me, because like this year, I'm not playing with size really. Last year I was playing with, like, for me, pretty big size. Some of the trades I was in with, $1,000 position, which is just crazy for my account. I mean, I have, I had last year like $2,500. So why are you going in with that much,
Yeah.
But this month, like I think my biggest position was maybe like 400, and even that's like huge. So I've really just been staying pretty much under $100 per position, even like 30 or $50, and I'll just take. But it's like you mentioned before, it's about the percentage gains. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm really trying to focus on,
Hmm.
because even if it's small dollar size and you make 20%, it's still 20%.
Yeah.
So if you just do that over and over, it's going to take a while, but you're going to grow your account.
Yeah.
And also, I don't have to worry about waiting for funds to clear the smaller I trade
Yeah. You
because
use less of
always
your account.
funds.
Yeah.
Right. And I also noticed people who have a cash account and you know that you have to wait for the funds. So obviously, if you're trading with bigger size, you eliminate your funds quicker. But
Hmm.
with small size, I just cut whenever because it doesn't matter because I could always re-add. I think
Yeah.
GTII, as an example, like last week, I think it
Mhm.
was. I can't remember, but let me see.
The first screen day on 127.
Let me see. Yeah, I think it was it 127. I can't remember. One of these days I took I'm looking for it, but I think it was, yeah, 127. I took like multiple losses on it in the morning,
Yeah.
but then I had like 8 trades on it that were wins after. And then the next day I took 2 losses or 1 loss in the morning, but then I made like 10 trades that were gains on it because I don't need to stay in if it's not doing what I want, you
Yeah.
know. So I'd rather cut for a small win than
Hmm.
lose, period. So
Yeah.
that's something that I think has been helpful too, just trying to get out for a gain, period, as opposed to a lot of people just let stocks hit their risk, and I don't really like doing that. I'd
Yeah.
rather just get out. If it bounces a little bit, I'll just get out, and then I won't even bother with the risk. You
Yeah.
know,
Hmm.
I digress now.
Yeah.
Uh,
Sometimes I'll let it hit my risk. Other times, you just get uncomfortable. There's nothing wrong with getting out.
right.
So as counterintuitive as it seems, you scaling down basically is most of what contributed to reaching your 2K milestone. Would you agree?
I would say it's a big factor. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would say scaling down, and like you said, it's counterintuitive, but
Hmm.
it seemed to have helped, especially with the stress. You know,
Hmm. Yeah.
if I'm in big, I don't typically wait for big percent gains. I'll take it at 3 to 5%, maybe 8% a piece. I'll piece out,
Hmm.
um, or size out. But with these small positions, I mean, I've been hitting over 20% gains left and right. And I
Yeah.
mean, I'm not saying that's like always going to happen.
Hmm.
It just seems to be happening right now with the market that we're in. So I'm
Yeah.
grateful for that. But I mean, with larger size, I just cannot hold because I get so antsy to hit the sell
Hmm.
button.
Yeah.
But like Tim Sykes and all them, and you say, like, it's all about like the process. So if we get the process down, then I get more comfortable. Boom, that's where you really start hitting a growth curve.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think
Yeah.
sizing down is huge.
And when you size down, you could see like the setups more clearly. A lot of times I'll take more size than I'm comfortable with, and then it didn't even move yet, and I'm out.
Right,
And then
right,
once you're out, you're like, wait, this is the chart I should stay in. Why'd I exit? And then it takes
right,
off without you if you bought it or something.
right.
Yeah.
ABML is a perfect example of that.
Yeah.
ABML is exactly that. On January 30th, I was buying that between 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock in the 60 cent area, in the mid 60s, or in
Oh,
60s.
that consolidation zone right there. Yeah.
Yep. I bought it once and I cut it for a loss, small loss, and then I bought it again and I cut it for a small loss. And then it rips to
It
74.
takes off 20% off that level.
And it's like, when you look at it, now I look at it, I'm like, well, what are you, an idiot? Like, it's consolidating above VWAP. Like, what are you
Yeah.
doing? But I don't know. I don't think I was sized in. I don't think I was sized up on it. I just think that I have to work on my patience. But again, if you're in too big, you're never going to learn patience because you're just
Yeah.
in too big.
Yeah.
But with that one, I just didn't. I was not patient with it. But yeah, you're right. When you size down, you can see the trends a lot more clearly.
Yeah.
Take that dollar aspect out of it.
Hmm. And you see like when it's even when you're taking a loss, if you have smaller size, you'll kind of get where's the right spot to take the loss. But when you get bigger size, sometimes you're like, all right, I'll get out if 170 breaks, and then next thing you know, you're staring at it and it's at 180. Like when you're
Yep.
short, next thing you know, it slipped your risk by 10%, and you're just staring at it because you're like, whoa, this is a bigger loss than I wanted to take.
Yep.
And then like right now, I stopped out at SOVR as soon as it hit the high of day.
Oh yeah, I see.
Yeah, I stopped out right away because I'm like, okay, the daily chart shows that pattern that I'm sort of looking for, where the red candle follows any big green candle, and
Yep.
I figure if that's still gonna work, I'm gonna get the reshort when it starts failing at red green.
Right.
But when you're bigger size right now, you're freaking your hands are shaking, and then you end up getting out where you're supposed to short.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that definitely, I agree with that, and that's part of the reason why I'm struggling so much to size up is because I'm trying to stick to the actual pattern as well as I can, and then that losing streak just messed me up completely because it was my first red day pattern, but I was trying to size up, so I sort of ignored the fact that there was already two or three of them that just ripped green and started spiking before I
Right.
took those shorts, and it took me like 4 or 5 shorts to experience that pain. I wanted to lose like 2%, and I came out with like 10% losses like 5 times in a row. Um, so I'm like, if I just had less size there, I'd see that the pattern isn't working that well. And then now
Right.
January came around, it started working well again. And because I was scaled down, I was able to recognize that and now start taking advantage of them. Like VENG, um, I was really struggling. Like when I
Right.
entered that, I was struggling for 2.5 months straight where nothing was working. So
Right.
to take that setup, it was really difficult. Like you question everything as you're entering it.
Right.
Uh, and then once it works, you're like, wow, that's what I have to focus on. It's back, and that's because I had smaller size. So now I'm gonna really just focus on nailing the entries over and over, nailing the exits right at my risk or even before risk, like whatever. But managing those losses tightly
Right.
and trying to be as accurate as I can. And then I'm just gonna feel more comfortable adding more shares, taking more shares every time, and we'll see
Right.
how that goes. Yeah.
That's something that I've been really trying to focus on. I've noticed that, and you know, like when I most of the time, maybe 70% of the time, when I dip buy,
Yeah.
uh, I try to I don't like to chase. I mean, if you look at WNDW today, that wasn't a dip buy, but I wanted to jump in it in the 150s when it started pushing, and I
Hmm.
didn't want to chase it. And then the thing is past $2. You
Yeah.
know, I have a problem with not wanting to chase, quote unquote, even though it's not, I guess, technically chasing. But
Hmm.
my thing is just trying to get the best entry possible.
Yeah.
And I think Mark Crook talks about that a lot, I think.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, and my exits are atrocious most of the time. They really are. Like I literally will sell half my position um up like a couple cents a share. I'm here.
Yeah.
I'll sell like half my position almost immediately if I'm up 2-3%. And then I'll split the rest or the other half into quarters, and just sell that along the way. But
Hmm.
the entry is something I'm really focusing on, and then I figure the exits will come with time. At least that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Once I know how to read stocks a little better. Because if I enter fine, if I enter well, there's not really a problem. But if my
Hmm.
entries aren't good, then it's just not. What's the point? You
Yeah.
know?
You can have the best setup and a bad entry, and then
I,
it's one of the worst setups you can take.
it's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. It screws it out. It screws it all up with a bad entry, especially if you took too much size at a wrong spot.
Right.
Um, but
Multiple
yeah, so
times.
you talked
Oh,
about the conference a little bit and how it really sort of took you to new highs on your journey. And I want to ask, like, what from the last conference inspired you to do better? Was it seeing everybody's reel? Was it communicating with other traders, or was it communicating with the better traders that were on stage? Combination of all the above.
I would say all the above. It's hard to put one of those, let's say, at like the pinnacle of what you would
Mhm.
say would be the best.
Yeah.
But I think talking with and physically like shaking hands with the people who are successful was
Hmm.
huge. And also the how do I put it?
Connections.
Yeah, I mean it's nice to see other traders that are on the same path as you and like who want to go down that same road as you.
Yeah.
But it's just something else to see the people who've done it. I mean, obviously. Um,
Hmm.
so I would say seeing the more successful people was more of an impact. But it's cool to see everyone who's kind of in it together, trying to make it work.
Yeah.
Um, And also, I mean, I don't know if this is like standard at all the conferences, but I really liked how I got the sun in my face. I really liked how a lot of the people like man, I cannot Paul Delgado, you
Oh
know,
yeah.
they got really Art of War, Ellis, you know,
Hmm.
they got really personal or
Yeah.
like you know, they just shared their story really well.
Hmm.
And it shows that, you know, everyone's from a different background, but you
Hmm.
know, that doesn't mean you can't make it in trading, you know.
Yeah.
So I really liked it, and it just made it like I keep saying, just made it real, you know.
Hmm.
Um, that's it. I don't
Yeah.
know what else to say.
And like if I could add to that, I think
Yeah,
like a lot of why I felt the conference was great, even though I had a losing streak after those conferences. It has nothing to do with the conference, but what what I felt was really helpful was talking to traders that are sort of around the same place where you are in your journey, where
right,
um you're just starting to sort of make money. Talking to those traders as well as ones that are before they start making money, it gives you sort of a perspective like where you were at, the progress you've made to get where you are. And then
right,
you talk to traders that are a step above and then 5 steps above. And you could just talk to everybody there and get everyone's perspective. And it gives you sort of more of an idea of what you've done on your journey. It's easy to
right,
forget when you're having a losing streak. It's easy to forget the progress you made, um, especially when it feels like you can't take that progress and continue it anymore.
right,
So getting that perspective and talking to them, I felt was really helpful as well.
right.
Yeah. Um, so another question is, what do you feel something you learned at the conference that you think other traders should know, whether they're advanced traders, intermediate, beginning, just anything that really connected with you?
Hmm. I wouldn't say that this is something that was like, I guess I'm sure that's people touched on it or articulated it. I bet
Mhm.
you're glad you cut SOBR.
Yeah,
Uh,
right.
Lyman.
I'm looking
Um,
to short again soon.
yeah, excellent job cutting that, by the way.
Thank you.
But I can't remember if it. I'm sure it was touched on and talked about, but I'm just reiterating position size.
Yeah.
Because I mean Tim Sykes he talks about it a lot. But last year I was really struggling with trying to prove that I could do it, and I wanted to prove it to like my wife, and but I think like now it's just really I just want to prove it to myself. Everyone wants to prove it to themselves, um, and I was trading just big. You know, I was just trading big, and then I would run out of the cleared funds, and then I would miss setups. You know, because I ran out of cash.
Hmm.
So it's just position size, I think, man. Like that's one of the biggest things. And I like it's something that's gonna, I would imagine, just consistently change throughout your entire journey.
Hmm.
Because if the market's not hot, you're going to be cutting your positions, you know, or lessening your positions. If it's starting to heat up, maybe you want to take slightly larger positions, but at the same time, you don't want to run out of potential funds if you're wrong, and
Yeah.
then run out of or when a play comes up, you don't have anything. So
Hmm.
it's just, I think that's one of the most important things. Yeah, cutting losses and sticking to your risk is huge.
Hmm.
But if you trade small and focus on getting those nice percent gains, even though I say I'm a scalper, basically, doesn't mean I don't get good percent gains. But also, it's it's almost impossible to blow up if you do that. You
Yeah.
know, even if I take a $50 position and the stock gets halted, what is it? Yeah, it sucks, but it doesn't matter. You know,
Yeah.
it's not like those positions where I was in $1,000 and then, you know, I'm adding, you know,
Yeah.
so I just think it's probably one of the smarter things that you could do is just whatever you are comfortable with. I mentioned this to someone in chat yesterday. I think it was Cole.
Hmm.
I think what I'm trying to do this year is if just listen to my gut, period, just because I've studied, and I'm not saying that I don't have to study anymore. I'm
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
saying that I've done enough studying to where I feel like on the setups that I like, I just trust my gut. And if I like the entry
Hmm.
in that second, just buy. And if at any point you're questioning whether or not you should enter, automatically cut the position that you have in the order window by at least 50%. That's something that I've done this year consistently, because if you're questioning it, you might as well just play it safe. But it
Hmm.
could just be that you're nervous for whatever reason. Maybe the markets are down, maybe whatever the case is. But cutting that, if in my case, if you panic dip buy, if I cut the position by 50%, and it's already small, I'm not saying a huge position, but
Yeah.
if you cut it by 50% and it hits your risk, you only lost, way less than you were going to lose anyways.
Hmm.
But if it continues, you still make a nice gain because you're looking for the potential percentage win. So
Yeah.
why not? So
Yeah.
that's kind of what I'm trying to do this year. And I think that eventually, sizing up will just come. That's just how it works. But
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
and like you said, it is so important to use like at least a reasonable size, because even if you stick to rule number one of cutting losses quick, you can easily blow up your entire account just by either not knowing what you're doing and going way too big size, or going way too big size without trusting that you'll actually get out at your risk level. So
right,
even like if you set your risk level wrong and you go in too big, especially when shorting, there goes your entire account. And that's if you still get out when you plan to. Let's say you didn't set your risk correctly and you're losing 100% at your risk. And then if you do set your risk correctly at 20% loss, 10% loss, sometimes you need wider stops on a big ripper. If you set your risk and you want to lose 10 or 20%, and then you oversize it, and then it blasts through that, and now you're down 50, 60, 70% and
right,
counting. It'll compound in seconds. you'll
right,
be you'll be slipping your risk. Next thing you know, you're down 80%. And
right,
it's like it can happen within a few minutes. So um that's also the thing, is like I trust myself to get out no matter what. Even if it slips my risk, I wanted to lose 10%, I'm down 50%, and that's the earliest I can get out, I'm still gonna get out.
right,
um but see, I trust that I'll get out, but I don't want that slippage on the one I sized up on, let's say.
right,
Once you
right,
get that slippage, it wiped out all your work and you're like, what have I done?
right.
It's tough. Yeah.
I think that's why I'm not sizing up lately either. One,
Hmm.
it's just you can't really size up on a dip buy, like
Yeah.
what there's really no way to, unless you just on the original entry going in
Hmm.
large.
Yeah.
Um, I lost my train of thought, but yeah, I without sizing up, I mean, I feel like there will just come a time where you're like, I feel like I can do it now.
Yeah.
And especially like you said, I just remembered, you always tend to size up on the one that isn't going to work.
Yeah.
So why even bother?
Yeah.
Just keep the same size across the board, and then
Yeah.
if one doesn't work, you're good.
Mhm.
But because I did that a few times last year where I'm
Yeah.
in one, I add, or I'm sized up, and it just does not work, and then there goes my entire month on one trade.
Yeah.
You're sitting there like not even want to trade it, not even want to look at the market anymore
Hmm.
because you're just so disgusted that happened. And it might not even be your fault. It could just
Hmm.
be that the setup didn't work, or
Yeah.
that's how it happens. It's how it works sometimes. But
Hmm.
yeah, so avoiding those things. Also, another thing I was just thinking, I'm the type of trader, we talked about it, where I set a risk, but I don't even really let the stock get to my risk. That's
Hmm.
just, Wolf talks about it, Sykes talks about it, everyone talks about finding your own like style, you
Yeah.
know. And I think a lot of last year, which is why I took some losses, was because I was trying to trade that way, where I would set a risk and then once it hit the risk, I'd cut. But this year, I'm trying to think, well, how do I actually trade? Like what, maybe that, and I'm thinking about it just now. Maybe that's just my style. Maybe I,
Yeah.
I just don't like waiting until the risk is hit.
Yeah.
So it's just figure out what works for you. Just same thing with position sizing is the same thing with trading in general.
Yeah.
Find size, find the style that works for you. And
Hmm.
at the conference there, that was a great example of you know, how many speakers were there? 15,
Yeah, there's I
give
think
or take?
15 and maybe one extra, like a
Okay.
surprise guest. Yeah,
That
that was
all
Glenn. That was Glenn, the surprise guest. Remember?
right,
Yeah,
right.
that's awesome, man.
Dude, nuts. And Laptop Legend, man.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
popped up. That was cool. But
Yeah, like that's an example. Laptop Legend and Michael Good were what I learned from them, like as really priority was to set a max loss level with your broker where they'll take you out no matter what. And
right,
it's not like I was too confident where I didn't want to set it, but it took me hearing it like them say it 5 times at the conference and then me record the conference. I mean, watch the conference twice
right,
after and hear it another 5, 10 times, and then I was like, all right, let me put that max loss in because I
right,
figured like, all right, I have small size. I want to lose $5 to $10, maybe 20, if it's really getting away from me. But who knows what happens if your computer shuts down, if your order
right,
doesn't execute. There's a bunch of stuff that can happen. And I was just like, all right, if it happens, I'll lose $50. You know, it's not that important. And this was even after I got short on TOP. And then my computer shut down. By the time I was back up, it was halted up like $5 a share higher than my short. So it was even after that happened where I was like, no, I don't need a max loss. I'm not trading that much. I'm not gonna blow my
right,
account.
right,
Um, but I finally put it on and it's much safer. Like realistically, I'm gonna lose $20 when I'm wrong and like $50 on like a like worst case scenario type of thing. So I set my max loss for $200 because
right,
there's no chance I'm gonna be still in the stock by the time I'm down 200, but you have no idea what happens. So maybe I
right,
will be, and then they'll take me out automatically. So and because I
right,
only lose 50, I have so much time to still get out for 70, 80, $90 loss. But you don't know when it halts, it could actually open up like 50%. These things go
right.
crazy sometimes. Yeah.
Or you could just do the Tim Lento and just
He just adds, it's crazy.
just stay in forever.
Yeah, it's so sketch, but I have a different sort of approach to all these setups. Like SOBR, I was gonna stick with my stop so that I kind of confirm when I'm wrong because I knew it's gonna be
Right,
choppy in between. But then you have like VENG, people are like, how are you shorting this on front side? Like I started in at 18 right when it
right,
was breaking out. So that was already like you're starting short on a breakout. It's a little counterintuitive, but I figured there's so many that will do that break and then start dumping. So I'd rather have a
right,
starter. And then also you want that starter to be focused on it and ready to add when the time's right. And I was adding short at like 25. But like the TOP example, I was short at like 19 and I was gonna get out at 20 no matter what. Next thing I know, it's halted up at 24. So
oh, right,
yeah, TOP, I wouldn't let it run past my risk like that. But VENG, I'll actually set my risk correctly so that it can run and keep going. Like I only started short at 18 because you don't know where they're going to crack. I shorted 18, I added like 22, cut some off 22.50, added 24, cut some on a dip, added back 25, and then I got the
right,
collapse starting, you know. So those so many people will ask me like, how are you in on the front side? This thing is going to squeeze. And it's like, yeah, I'm set for that. I want it to squeeze because that's how you know it's going to dump.
right,
You know what I mean?
right,
Meanwhile, SOBR, if it starts squeezing, that thing's going to squeeze. It's going to keep
right.
going. There's no sign that it's going to dump if it's squeezing. It's going to go 250. And then there's that other daily level at 250 that people probably swing short from. And if that breaks, you get momentum buyers. This thing's ripping to 4. And meanwhile, you're
Right.
short from 160. So
And
that's why there's so many different approaches to the setups. And yeah, your trading style is it's what works for you. Because a lot of times I see you get in on a panic and you have that bidder following it up as it's bouncing. The buyer's following it up, bringing it up, and then that bidder disappears. It didn't hit your
right,
risk, but I know you're going to get out because
right,
that's probably a sign that it's not going to go higher.
right. And
Yeah.
another thing, I mean, I mentioned it in I think the challenge chat and then also in our chat. I'm trying to consider also, even though I have small size right now,
Mhm.
what's the volume that's going through? Because you know I trade OTCs a lot, and I don't really like listed right
Yeah.
now. Um, what's the volume going through? Because if the volume isn't good, then you can't scale this. You know, so
Mhm.
you just keeping that in mind, like for WNDW. I mean, right now I don't even consider dollar volume, but I know that's going to be something that's going to come up eventually, so that you're not more than what, like 2 or 3%,
Mm-hmm.
something like that. But with how I like to trade, I don't want to be, I probably don't want to be more than like a couple percent of the minute candles, so
Yeah.
I can just get out.
Yeah, you
But
want to get out in a minute candle sometimes. You want to be able to do that. So that's important, yeah.
right, so
For sizing up.
right, like my thing is like I may be doing okay right now, but when it comes to sizing up, I might have to change up how I trade just because of that fact. But I mean, we'll
Yeah.
see, when that time comes.
Yeah, like I don't know if you remember 2 days ago when I was trying to get out of FRFR, I was like writing all day asking like, can somebody tell me why this doesn't execute my order? It's hitting 10% below my order. And nobody was answering until Lento yesterday, where he told me well, yeah, it's being illiquid, but you leave an order. I left the order out for over 12 hours and there was no fills. Like it was an entire day and then 3 hours the next morning until Lento had a webinar. And he's like, it's because of the size on the level two, and my size was less than it. But you also figure if I had 100,000 shares and I have to get out and I couldn't get out for a full day with that small size that I had, what are you going to do with 100,000 shares? You're not
Right.
going to be able
So
to get out.
I wasn't listening to that webinar. So you couldn't get out. Was it because your size was so small they just weren't
Yeah,
bothering with it?
they were just ignoring my order
Oh
basically.
my
And
God.
and what I would do is I'd put it between the spread, and orders are hitting 10, 15, even 20% lower than my order, and I
Right.
wasn't getting a fill. And I'm like, I'd rather take that 20%, but I just want out at this point, you know? And
Right.
then Trader's Workstation on IB was like, I put in the order on the ask, which was 90. The spread was 40%. So I put my order on 90 and there was no fill. And I'm like, I mean, no, then it said you can't input the order because it's too far from the
Too
price.
far.
Yeah. So I'm like, I literally just went out. So I hit up Interactive Brokers. The first day I hit them up and they didn't even answer my support request all
Oh
day.
shit.
Yeah. So the second day I hit them up and they're like, oh, yeah, let me process that for you. And like 2 seconds later, I got filled on the ask. I'm like, why couldn't it just work?
Oh my gosh.
Imagine you had 100,000 shares. You're either going to cause a massive spike from the illiquidity, or I don't even know. Will you be able
Right.
to get out? So
Well,
that's something to consider in the future when I size up. Is if I have 100K shares, I'm gonna be taking some out at least the way down. Like end up with 10K at the end when it's illiquid. That's fine because you don't want to squeeze yourself.
right. Right.
Yeah.
Or you could pull the Tim Sykes like in his older webinars where he's like typing to the guys like, get me out
Yeah,
3,000 shares. Did you get it? Did you get it? Did
that's how I felt when I was talking to the Interactive Brokers support. I'm like, can you please just take me out of this? I just want
Seriously.
out.
Yeah, that's good to know because that happens with when I'm trying to long some of these liquid OTCs. It's
Yeah,
like it just jumped up like 10% past my buy. People are
yeah,
buying, and I'll see 100,000, 20,000, and I'm just trying to buy 1,000, and I'm like, what's going on here? Put me in. But that
yeah,
makes sense. Um,
exactly,
yeah, but that's good to keep in mind on both sides.
for sure. Um,
Did you touch
yeah, so
anything
I
on the
appreciate you sharing with us. Because it's a great milestone. It's a good lesson to share with us all that I mean what I'm taking away from this is it's you didn't do any specific one thing to get you there. It was the hard work since you started. And I feel like a lot of people have to experience this where they start, they don't do well, then they start doing well, and then they quit. And then they have a long period of time where they're not trading and they have to sort of realize the opportunity that's there in order to come back. So
Right,
I don't know if you quit when you took your break, but you took your break. I personally I did quit.
right,
So um, either way, taking some time away and then figuring out what you're missing is a very crucial part to trading. And then also sizing up, getting beat up and sizing back down a bunch of times, it's required. And if you asked me a month ago, I would literally say I'm probably never going to figure out how to trade again. um, and right now I nailed like pretty much every big short that I was preparing for, I nailed them, but with small size.
Right.
So it's
And
important to see that. Like I a month ago I wasn't nailing anything, and now
right,
that even though it's the dollar amount is irrelevant pretty much, I'm nailing the entries, you know.
right. And I
That's a
think that's
good,
what counts, man. I
yeah.
mean, you send your pictures in the chat and it's picture perfect, man.
Yeah.
These are beautiful shorts, like no joke. And a point that you brought up about the like the hard work aspect, like
Mhm.
I know that a lot of the top guys say like it's not one trade isn't going to like make your career, you know, but it will break you. So
Yeah.
that's something to keep in mind. But I was just looking at my trades. I've taken just over 2,500 trades
Wow.
already. So 2,500 trades with a 60% win average
Hmm.
and 2,000, just over $2,000 profit. So that means that I've made about a dollar or less than a dollar per
Yeah.
trade. So
Yeah.
it really is just small trades over time over this
Yeah.
time. But and also, yeah, I think the break was a big deal.
Hmm.
Especially missing such a big market, you know.
Yeah.
So
I agree. And like in as like from my perspective, I have a little over 400 trades since I restarted in 2021. And before that was about 400 trades as well, but the first 400 was I was down like 3,800. And then
right,
now these 400, I'm up $330, but this is also after my losing streak. So you see, I'm also less than a dollar per trade, it looks like on average. Um, but I was losing like 20, $30 a trade on average before that. And then
right,
also I had one trade that was down 500. I had another trade I lost 900. Like
right,
you can't do that. You
right,
get three chances there and you blow up your entire,
right,
at least your mental state, and then you can't even try anymore.
right,
So I cut that out completely, and I've been using much smaller since then. But it's a good example. Like this is we're on the right trajectory, and many people will look like, why is this guy trading 2,000 times to
right,
make $2,000? And they don't incorporate all the mistakes. Like
right,
you have that big percent loss in there. I have 100% loss on BLTE. Um, there's so many. I have like a 70% loss somewhere too. So many mistakes
right,
that contribute to that trajectory, and yet we're still on the right track. So it's really good to keep that in mind.
right. Yeah, 100%. I mean,
Mhm.
you'll see some people with 100 or 200 trades and they're up like 15K, which is
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with that. That's
No.
good for you. But it's all about the experience and like the
Yeah.
education throughout over the course of time.
Hmm.
You know, Tim says it a lot, marathon, not a sprint. Everyone says
Yeah.
it, marathon. It's all a marathon. Where are you going to be in 5 years, 10 years, you know? So yeah, a couple thousand trades and I'm okay with that. And then it'll be another 50,000 before I hit, 50K, let's say.
Yeah.
But we'll get there.
Hmm. And a lot of people, nothing against them, but they'll have 25 trades and be up 50,000. Like that's dangerous to me.
Right.
That's dangerous because they haven't experienced the big drawdown yet, at least in this journey. Like if they've experienced drawdowns in other investment strategies and stuff before this, that's fine. You learned how to lose, sure. But you have to learn how to lose in these high volatility situations, because if you don't cut it, you're wiping out everything you did. So those
Yeah.
25 trades making 50,000, you look at it and you're like, why couldn't I do that?
Right.
But if you couldn't, I think you're set for like a much smoother ride once you really get the strategies, because they're not going to get that you have to cut that loss as quick as they do until one of them slips and is a disaster. And then if you made 50,000, chances are you're trading with over 10 grand as your position, especially if you're aggressive and you just started out. So taking 10 grand position, you try a short, you just wiped out all your 50,000 like in a morning. It'll happen before 12 o'clock. You'll lose your
Right.
entire account and more. So that's why it's a bit sketchy when I see people like up a lot and very few trades. It's sort of like they didn't. Yeah, so I was saying they basically didn't get they didn't get the experience and they didn't survive the battle yet. And that's
Right.
a very, very, very crucial part to trading is you need to be in the battle, you need to suffer, and you need to survive, and then you're ready for the upward trajectory. So yeah, that's all I had to ask you today. So if you have any finishing thoughts, would be appreciated.
I got two things that came to mind. The first thing was when you mentioned someone who's oversized, potentially oversized, and potentially doesn't have the experience to handle that size.
Mhm.
When they're faced with a situation where, 10 seconds go by and let's say you're short and then all of a sudden you're in a squeeze. I mean, what
Yeah,
was that one that everyone was talking about? I
I
can't remember.
lag,
ILAG.
ILAG. Yeah, I
Yep.
was short. I was short before that
I
spike.
remember you saying it. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, that's huge. When you have that size on, what do you do? And also there's the potential of illiquidity, you
yeah,
know. So if you're sized and you're not thinking, and that's not like I'm trying to consider that with small size, but if you start out in your big size, maybe you didn't consider that. And then it could be a situation where like Tim, maybe not exactly, but like Tim Sykes was in early on with what was it?
Sigma C
Signet?
transactions. Yeah,
Yeah, C transactions. You don't want that to happen. So,
exactly.
and kind of synonymous with that, but like, what is it? Like Jordan Peterson talks about lobsters. Have you heard this?
Lobsters?
The,
No,
the lobsters.
no, I
So
haven't.
lobsters are a lot like people, but based on like I'm probably gonna butcher this a bit, but based on they like have dopamine as well. I can't remember exactly how to articulate this well, but basically when lobsters get into territorial disputes,
Yeah,
so losing lobster, um, basically its brain digests, it melts away, and it grows back like a loser brain.
wow.
And it will always from that point on have trouble winning or being a winning lobster again. Whereas the winner lobster of that confrontation will, he'll get all puffed up and be a winner. So my point with bringing that up is if we're going to be lobsters, you probably want to be the winning lobster. You don't want to be the losing lobster. So don't
Yeah,
take sides to where if you get caught, your brain melts. you
yeah,
know, you don't want to be stuck like that. You don't want to get all hunched over and sad with your little claws. You
yeah.
want to be a puffed up lobster. So just play with small size. Like the only downside is it's going to take you a little longer.
It
So
is. It's gonna take a while, yeah. But it allows you to stay level-headed the whole time. And I'm really not proud that I'm stuck in this small size zone, but I'm looking at the positive of it. Like for example, how you brought up ILAG. I was actually short like 490 or something. So I
right,
was I was prepared to get a disaster if I stayed in that. You know what I mean? Like
right,
I wasn't trying to get into a disaster. I thought it was a good short. So I got in at 490, and a lot of the price action around 450 and I think it hit 430. A lot of that price action is what Michael Good and Laptop Legend and all these guys warn about. The
right,
price action that was happening on the bids, I've been warned about by these experienced traders. So me going in with small size, I'm like, oh, those bidders are crazy. No, I'm not going to stay in this. And I
right,
covered for a small win. And when it came all the way back, I figured, all right, this is right near my risk. Let me take another short, and I did. And then I'm thinking, as it's rolling back over, if those bidders are still there, it's going to squeeze like crazy. And then
right,
so I got out of that one for another small win. And during this whole time, those bigger traders were still piled in heavy. So I
right,
think the heavy size is what kind of skewed their judgment a little bit. Whereas I was able to get out and recognize it. And I'm not that experienced compared to them. So I'm like, how
right,
did I figure out that these bidders were too strong? And I even asked the laptop legend, David Hanlon, I asked him at the conference, um, why did he stay in when he saw those bidders? Because I learned from him that those bidders, it makes it scary.
right,
And he basically didn't know. He didn't know why he stayed in. And that's normal. He
right,
did know because the last 10 or 20 of these Chinese stocks, no matter how hard they squeezed, they crashed all the way down.
right.
So and they didn't squeeze that hard from 4 to 12 in 3 minutes or whatever that was. So once all that piled up and he's like, let me take bigger size here, it skewed his judgment a little. And
Right.
me, I did see all the last 20 dump and I also shorted them, but like because I couldn't size up, it sort of made me realize that this is not acting how the others dumped, you know.
Right.
And then I took TOP right before my computer shut down on the same day. And yeah, before I could see what the bidders are doing, my computer shut down. So
Right.
by the time I got my laptop open, it was like I had to update the platform and all this, and then it was halted up at 24. And I'm like, I wanted to lose $1 a share. I didn't want to. I'm
Right.
not trying to cut here. But I had the order ready to hit 30 even because I didn't know where it's gonna unhalt. And I got lucky because it unhalted and slapped all the way down like to like 22. So instead of losing $1, I lost $2. But I was
Right.
gonna lose $4 or $10 or whatever if I didn't get out.
Right.
But yeah, if it took off, I was still gonna get out if it was 30, but I didn't want to do that. Take $10 a share when you wanted one, you know. Uh,
Right.
but that's another thing. I was small size there, and if I wasn't, maybe I would have opened the laptop and been like, all right, now this is too extended. Now it has to slap. And then it would have opened at 30 and pushed 35, 40.
Right.
I was short like 1980 or something.
Right.
You can't let that happen.
Right.
Yeah.
And that same thing has happened with me, when especially last year when I'm
Mhm.
oversized or I want that big win on a panic dip buy, let's just say using that as an example, it's hard to cut the loss when you size up because if a stock goes from let's say $1 to 50 cents and then it breaks to 50, you're like, "Oh my God, this thing it's down 50%, like it has to bounce at some point." And
Mhm.
you get in huge at 49, 49.5
Yeah.
and then it doesn't bounce, I don't want to cut because I'm like, what there's no way it's going to go further. Like it
Yeah.
broke that round number. It's, got the stop losses out, didn't go much further. How many other people are selling? But that is where, like, I agree, like large size can skew your judgment big
Yeah.
time.
And then it
And
gets pounded even harder when you say like, oh, how far is it gonna go? And then it goes
right.
harder than it was already.
Yep. And
Yeah.
that's how I had all those big losses in December. That exact mentality.
Yeah.
I was sized up on them, which I shouldn't have been, and I didn't cut. And then I added on top of that. So it was like the holy trinity of ways to fuck up.
Yeah.
But that's such a good point. Um, and I'm not at the point yet, but I know that there will be a natural evolution to when you want to size up. I
Yeah.
just know it. It's just annoying when you're not sized up,
Yeah.
especially when you get good percent winners consistently,
Yeah.
because then it's like, okay, well, the next time this rolls around, I'm going to size up. And then when you
Mhm.
do, that's the one that fucks up and you lose
Yeah.
all your small gains. So it's just the building confidence slowly, and
Yeah.
then over time, I'm sure position will come into play more and more. But
Yeah.
yeah, good point with the position size.
Yeah. And one thing I want to end on,
Yeah,
the stock snipers, you heard me talking about them before. One thing they mentioned in the last webinar was um actually 2 webinars ago is how you said when the stock is down, you bought it, let's say it's down 25%, you buy it and then it drops another 25%, you're trying to add. They mentioned that you have to keep in mind when a stock drops 50%, it needs to spike 100% to get back to even. You see? Like
right,
it's a little tricky, but when let's say a stock drops 90%, like CYBL, I was swinging long on that and it gapped down 95 or 96%. Like you don't even want to sell, the position's worthless. But
right,
then CYBL spiked 400% out of the open and
right,
I sold for a 60% loss. So
right,
that's an example. Like the longer you hold to the downside, the more it has to spike in order for you to break even. Like that thing, CYBL had to spike 1,000%, which is almost impossible. It happens, but it's not possible after they're getting investigated. They got the buyer beware caveat emptor
right,
sign, and it still bounced 400%. But
right.
you see what I mean? Like when
That's
it
a
was
good
up
point.
there, I'm thinking, let me try to wait for a little more spike. But then if
Right.
you just do a calculation real quick, the thing's up 400% off the lows. So I'm like, you know
Good
what? Let
point.
me get out of this because it's
Right.
probably not gonna go 1,000% in a day.
Right.
And I ended up getting out right at the top. So
Right. I
that's
tried to
sort of
buy
the
that.
thing. Yeah.
I
What?
tried to long that at the open, or I think,
Yeah. Oh my God.
dude,
Now
I
you're
was I
profiting
was
off my
smacking my
mistakes.
desk. I was smacking my desk. I'm so mad that I can't long the caveat emptor. So I don't know. Do you know of a broker that you can long those at?
Um, Pretty sure. Yeah, Interactive Brokers most likely
Okay.
lets you. They let you trade anything basically as long as you have it
Okay.
enabled. Like I can go buy a Hong Kong exchange stock, but I don't want to.
Good to know because
Yeah.
there were like three cab. The only one I can't remember was it
VNG,
BNG was the one
RFR.
I
Yeah.
would have got screwed on, but I would have cut it. I think I would have got in at like the fours and I would have cut it in the high threes. So I
Yeah.
probably would have taken like a 10% loss. But I
Mm-hmm.
was looking at what was the last ticker you just mentioned?
FRFR.
No, the caveat
CYBL.
CYBL. I was looking at that and I had like a huge order on that ready to go. And that was one where I was sized up because I
Mm-hmm.
just loved how it looked. And I think I had like $800 ready to go.
Yeah.
And I hit buy and then the alert pops up like cannot buy caveat and I start smacking my desk. I'm like, no, this is the one. This is
Oh
one where I'm
my
gonna
God.
size up. And then it goes up like 100%. And I'm like, fuck, like, son of a bitch.
That's
But
so funny.
I was so furious because I was like, of course, the one there I was like, oh, I'm gonna big on this one, but it's okay. So that's good to know about interactive, but
Yeah.
also good to know because VNG just did not bounce where I would have got in. I would have taken a loss on that, but I
Yeah.
wouldn't have been as big on that one as I would have with CYBL just because I like the look of that one. And I think
Yeah.
it gapped. It was just such an insane gap down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
It was like
yeah,
98% or
it was
96%. I don't even know.
dude, it was so nuts. I was like, there's no freaking way this thing's not gonna have a bounce. If this thing sells off at the open a bit, it's gonna rip. Like, there's
Yeah.
no freaking way this thing's gonna just continue downtrending all day. Like after the bounce, wherever that goes, then it's done. I don't
Yeah.
care. But
My
yeah.
position was worth like $3 on the market open. I'm like,
Oh
what? Like
shit.
if I sold it, I would pay more commission than the actual value of the position. You might as well hold it.
Oh, fuck. Yeah, man.
That
That
was
that was a
crazy.
nuts one. I remember you saying that I'm in CYBL and I remember reading like, oh no, man. Like fuck. But
Yeah.
that's trade. That's why you don't want to be too big on any size, especially overnight. Like,
Yeah, and
fuck,
especially when you're testing them.
happened.
Like I was testing that. I could have easily put 1,000 if I just my perspective was like, oh, this is gonna work. I could have put 1,000. My
Right.
perspective was this is gonna gap down 90%. And that's
Right.
what happened. So I
Right.
prepared for it.
Man.
Yeah,
Man, good lessons.
that's a great lesson. Yeah. But thank you, Alan, for sharing with us. Great
Yeah.
lessons, and let's do this again.
Yeah, man. We definitely got to do more videos. We'll
Mhm.
get going with it. Maybe set up a schedule or something.
Absolutely. All
Oh
right,
yeah.
brother. Take care. Thank you.
All right. Talk to you later.
Peace.